A very warm welcome to Couple of Sports 3.0. I'm waiting for Andrew Flint to jump in with me, not on top of me, just with me. And of course, it is a big day of World Cup action. We've just seen the first knockout game this year go to penalties. And of course, who won but Croatia? They are now firmly the Germans of world football right now. Interesting game. Japan take the lead like we predicted last night. Croatia pulled one back, a very, very well taken headed goal from Perisic. And unfortunately, Japan just couldn't, I think physically they were bullied off the ball. They just couldn't get into it and, lost out, had a chance of a lifetime to beat Croatia. That Croatia team is Asian. That Croatia team is still good, but you could see that even Luka Modric was less effective than he was in the last World Cup and even than he was 2 years ago. So it was a big, big chance for Japan. And they didn't take it. So, as I said, it was 1-1 after extra time. They went to penalties. And straight away, bringing in Andrew Flint. Andrew, I mean, we did say last night, or you guys did say last night, Japan would score first, but Croatia were very physical, very, very strong. And I think maybe a little bit too clever for Japan.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment because they came under the pressure that we expected, and I think most people around the world have come to expect of Japan during this tournament, which is a huge amount of energy and a slightly interesting, team selection in the sense that he kept Daizan Maeda up front in the middle, who a lot of Japanese fans I've spoken to are a little bit surprised that he still keeps faith with him when you've got the likes of Takuma Minamino on the bench, for example. Very, very talented players. Maeda runs and presses. And they were in control at the beginning, but Croatia know they have got players on the ball who can run and run and run, but also play good balls right towards the end of those energetic, sapping games. And you mentioned Modric coming off. That was the sort of player in 2018 who really was absolutely critical of, it's not just his work rate, but his calmness on the ball in those moments when they're low in energy. Croatia can operate like that still. I think where Croatia may come unstuck later on in the tournament and certainly future tournaments is when they come up against sides who have both the energy of Japan, but also the more clinical finishing and the playmaking ability that they themselves have. I think they may well end up struggling in future, but they did the job. Can't argue with that.
No, that's it. They get over the line. You can only beat what's put in front of you. And, as you're saying that, the job is done, and it was done quite well by Croatia. Japan, they were dead. They did their best. They tried it. I again think that they just weren't physical enough. And also, you can see the height differences so often. And it's not just height, but strength. And the Croatians, it's not like the Serbs who were very big, very, very strong, physically strong, but technically and tactically were quite inept at times, but Croatia were very, very good and very, very solid. Quick on last night's game, England and Senegal. We knew that England were going to win it. It was a very solid English performance, but that first half, Senegal lost a lot of chances and it could have been an awful lot closer, Andrew.
They absolutely did. They threatened us. I worried they might do it in patches. They broke quickly, and this is what we know about them. I mean, they're African champions for a reason, not just because they had Sadio Mane in that tournament earlier this year, but because they have so many dangerous players that don't need much to get past their markers. And we saw, Ismaila Sarr was the person that I was particularly worried about. We mentioned last night before the game itself, which I thought was a very interesting test for Kyle Walker, because when you've got someone of that profile, I'm not trying to say that a Watford winger is the same class as Kylian Mbappe, but a very, very quick, very direct runner is exactly the sort of test you actually need. And he got a bit of joy down the wings. And with England's their team selection, I really do want to stress this. I think it was pretty much perfect for this exact opponent, stage of tournament, the development of the players, the mood, the momentum. I thought it honestly was absolutely spot on. And I even include, I can't believe I'm saying this, Jordan Henderson in that. In a way, you could possibly swap out Calvin Phillips for Jordan Henderson to do a similar job, because Phillips he certainly has the energy. I'd say Henderson's passing is slightly better, but having the midfield three of England's best Irishman, Jordan Henderson, and arguably the player of the tournament so far, or one of them, in Jude Bellingham, who does absolutely everything with the assuredness of a Luka Modric at 19 years old. He was incredible. That's the difference maker that sets teams apart in the latter stages of tournaments. He can carry the ball, he can sit back. He's a strong lad, very strong lad. And the front three, I thought, was absolutely perfectly balanced. Phil Foden, was involved in laying on a goal for, was it Bukayo Saka? Was it Harry Kane goals? I forget. And Bukayo Saka on the other, Harry Kane in the middle. Beautiful. It worked very well.
Andrew, one thing that came up an awful lot, England, of course, they decided not to risk a booking wearing the One Love armband, but they're still taking the knee. And it did look a little bit odd taking a knee against Senegal. And the Senegalese, they stood, and there were, I listened to a Senegalese journalist speaking on BBC this morning, BBC World Service, the radio, and the presenter asked, well, is it not a good solidarity with Africa? And he's like, then just, stop taking our resources, give us back our resources, give us back, he said, give us back 400 years of colonialism. It just looked very, very strange. What's the point of this, Andrew, at this stage? Because we've ridiculed this for a long, long time, thinking this is very, very silly, and it looked silly yesterday.
I mean, it really did. This is the thing. They are virtual signallers. The England side, I will say that. They're even bad at signalling that virtue. It's all about the optics for them. They want to be seen to be taking the knee. They didn't even think about how it would look. I mean, it did look uncomfortable. And actually, I think it's the image of the England players taking a knee and the Senegalese players not taking the knee was actually quite a good one, because it almost crystallized the slightly ridiculousness of this obsession with a gesture and then nothing else afterwards. I understand. I'm not saying I stand on either side in particular of the do you take a knee or do you not, should you or should you not. But I do hear the arguments for the likes of Wilfried Zaha, for example, was one of the first Premier League footballers to really speak out and say, look, I'm not going to take part in a gesture, which is just a gesture. And in his mind, he said, it is undermining the effort it is supposedly trying to raise a profile for, because people do a gesture and they think that's enough. They wash their hands of it. I think they realised that, well, if we back down on the armband and we don't take the knee, which we've now become known for, it's now part of the England identity, it's part of who they say they're trying to be. If they can't not do it, because now they've made a bed for themselves, they've got to lay in it. They are the side that does it. And if they don't do it, they'll say, oh, wait, you've chosen not to do that either. Wow, you really must not care about the issues. I mean, it's become a farce. It is a farce, the whole situation. And the worst part of it all is that we're not really talking about the actual issue itself, which of course needs to be addressed, which is the way that people of different skin colors, racial backgrounds, beliefs are treated. There is inequality, whether people agree or not. It is a simple fact, the way that different people of different backgrounds are treated. And all of this is creating a whole load of hot air over something that is not just ignoring the issue, but it is glossing over it. And I think it's actually doing more damage than good.
Yeah. Frank Carter, friend of ours, I think France in Croatia said, you support a knee with Kaepernick. That's the quarterback from San Francisco 49ers who used to do it. He had a reason. Now it's a brand. Yeah, that's just exactly what Andrew said.
It's a brand. That's a really good way of putting it. It is a brand. And England have bought into it.
If we look at it, if England go out and 2 or 3 players of colour from the English team miss penalties or play badly or get red cards or something, all the people who are like, right on taking a brand, even the people are taking a knee and taking a stand for this. This is so important. The people who are supporting this, I can guarantee you 100%, when they're home with their friends or whatever, that they become those beeps did it again for us. They will say it because they don't care. This is just absolute another virtue signal, like you said. Okay, with that out of the way, let's look straight away to tomorrow's games because they are very, very important before we go on to tonight's one. Tomorrow we've got Morocco, Spain, and then Portugal and Switzerland. Morocco and Spain, Andrew, that's a huge one. I can see Spain coming badly unstuck in this. It's not just wishful thinking. I just think that Morocco are a very good team, very well drilled, great tactics, and have a chance.
I completely agree. I genuinely do. I think this is going to sound odd, but for me, the alarm bells over the Spanish team rang in the middle of that 7-0 thrashing of Costa Rica. I thought that was about the worst result, optics, if you like, of a game that they could possibly have had in their first game, because it was as comfortable as anything. And I'm not saying the entire squad will automatically think, all right, now we're definitely going to coast it, but it didn't it gave them the exact opposite. It took away any sense of jeopardy, any sense of urgency, which you need in a tournament. You need that because there are going to be moments, whether you like it or not, no matter what the quality of opponent in terms of FIFA rankings, that you are going to be challenged. And the fact that they weren't, and it was a point, well, it was worse than the pointless exercise. It did damage to their steel. I mean, you think back to 2010 when they won the World Cup. This style of football is not everybody's cup of tea, admittedly. They only scored 8 goals, which I believe is the lowest total, sort of per game anyway, of any side to ever win the World Cup. But it wasn't so much about the style of play. It was just they were tough. You came up against Spain, you knew you were going to have to work hard. Their concentration and professionalism was just absolutely top-notch. This Spain side has a huge amount of talent and potential, but so do a lot of sides at this World Cup. So do France. France have got a huge number of injuries to their first choice players, and you look at their first choice team now, it is still absolutely incredible. They've got Real Madrid starter Aurelien Tchouameni, who comes in because Pogba and Kante aren't fit. Well, you've got Tchouameni, you've got Camavinga, who's not even in the first choice lineup. So just because Spain are talented, that alone means very little.
That's true.
So tomorrow against Morocco, this has been a World Cup, I think, of teams who have made the difference, made it count when they've got nothing to lose. And Morocco genuinely have nothing to lose. They don't make the quarterfinals. Well, they've made the knockouts. That is impressive. And that's not being condescending.
No,
they got nothing to lose.
Last time I remember, I commentated in the match with Portugal, and they were done by a headed Cristiano Ronaldo goal. They had 3-4 players on him every time, and it was a pretty poor match. But they were actually a very good team, and I remember I saw them in training in preparation in Voronezh when they were preparing for the World Cup, when they were based there. They were a good side, but just couldn't get over the line. This time I think they're cuter and smarter. Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a tough one. Portugal and Switzerland, Andrew. I'm not a fan of the Swiss. I didn't enjoy the match with Serbia, despite all the goals. I thought they were very nasty. I thought there was it wasn't a nice match to watch, and it wasn't an enjoyable match. However, they're still a decent team. They play well, but I would love to see Cristiano Ronaldo do one, and because now he's going to be £20 million a year in Saudi Arabia. Al Nassr. He's got Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia.
Well, because he wanted Champions League football. I mean, he's a man of his word, isn't he? So you'd assume that we're going to hear. I saw a tweet from Rodney McCain, a Northern Irish journalist, earlier. He's saying, "Shock news coming tomorrow. Al Nassr have been admitted into the Champions League," because that must be why he went there. I mean, look, nobody should be surprised. We know what he's all about. I take that back. I actually am surprised because his obsession is all about his image and his records, and I genuinely did think he would hold out for somebody genuinely in the Champions League. But look, that's where he's going. Interestingly,
who take him, Andrew? There's no one there who could pay his salary. Who needs him? That's the thing.
This is exactly it. He's an extraordinarily imbalanced profile of football player when you take into account image, reputation, age, salary demands, of course, is a major thing. It's a business transaction. All of those factors, it's stating the obvious. There are very few who could, even if they wanted to. But even if you could, why would you want somebody like that? If you were, okay, PSG would be one who certainly have the wealth, but you've got already Neymar, Lionel Messi, arguably the greatest player of all time, but certainly in the conversation, and Kylian Mbappe, possibly the best player in the world at the moment. Why would you want Ronaldo messing that up? You just simply wouldn't. Real Madrid, they've got an aging, very, very good player who's just won the Ballon d'Or up front. Benzema's not losing his place. They've got Vinicius Junior. They've got Rodrigo. They've got Federico Valverde. They've got Modric. They simply don't need him. And Manchester City had, was that realistic interest when Cristiano joined? I don't think it was, and it was George Mendes just trying to raise a bit of
money. Yeah, it was money.
Yeah, money.
I'd love. It would have been amazing to see him go to PSG. To play.
That would have been fun, just for the chaos. Would have.
Just how brilliant would it be to see Messi and Ronaldo lining up together with Mbappe, and I would actually pay to watch that, because it would just, like you said, chaos.
It would genuinely be entertainment. It doesn't matter whether good quality or just chaotic. It would be entertainment of some sort. It's almost like going to a live stand-up comedy night. If a comedian's good, he makes you laugh because he tells good jokes. But if he's really bad, you sort of are hooked and absorbed at the utter catastrophe unraveling in front of you. I think on a semi-serious note, on a more, with regards to tomorrow, that is genuinely interesting. We've seen, we know Cristiano Ronaldo's broken records for Portugal. He is an icon. He is one of the all-time greats, no doubt, no question, and particularly obviously for Portugal. But Fernando Santos has now been saying virtually exactly the same things that we've heard Erik ten Hag and other managers say about Ronaldo throwing strops and kicking up at fuss. He said he was very disappointed at Ronaldo's attitude in the World Cup camp. Now, for Fernando Santos to say that, he is a man who has already achieved success internationally. He doesn't need to make life difficult for himself. No. And even in a short tournament, you'd think, just keep Ronaldo happy for a couple of weeks, and do the best you can. And he's still come out and said that. So people saying, well, it's all Manchester United not delivering on Cristiano Ronaldo's promises. That never really held water. Not for a second did I. That's a separate issue. Manchester United do have issues, but Cristiano Ronaldo, the character, the personality, the man obsessed with the shade of his orange skin. How much effect this is going to have ahead of tomorrow? Because he did say he didn't confirm if Ronaldo would still be captain tomorrow. Which, unless there is a major problem, that is about slam dunk captain as you could possibly get, because he hit.
Exactly. Look, when they won the European Championship, when he went off injured in 2016, he kicked every single ball and gave himself for the team, which was something that shocked. It was
impressive.
Yeah,
it was impressive of him. To be fair, that was the attitude you want to see from the captain. But
and he didn't start, he literally celebrated, and he gave it to the team. But okay, look, we have to move on very, very quickly tonight. Then a huge game, last chance for Asia at this World Cup. Great for them that the first time they had 3 teams in the knockout stage, which is brilliant for Asia. Today, Brazil and South Korea kicking off in just over half an hour. Andrew, no matter what, Brazil are the powerhouses. Okay, if Neymar plays or not, it's still unsure, because they said, even though the lineups were coming out, they said that they weren't sure whether they would, because they said that they didn't know if they would want to risk him, even though he was named in the starting lineup. They were a bit afraid of getting an injury right now. But I don't know. he is, no matter how much of a cheat he is and a terrible person he is, he still is one of the best players they have.
Well, you want him in your side. If he's fit, he plays. I mean, I think he's a very, very interesting player. If you actually watch him very closely in games, there are people like you just alluded to who are quite frankly sick of his play acting. There is definitely an element of that, but I think you have to understand the amount of physical abuse he really does put up with every single game. It's a bit of the boy cried wolf to him, really. He does take not just little brushes that knock him off balance. He gets seriously hard knocks on a regular basis. That will feed into his frustration, his inflated sense of injustice that will then make him play act a little bit more. And people see the play acting, they don't really notice the actual physical abuse he's had to put up with. I mean, years ago with Maradona, he famously took an unbelievable beating, and he drew an average of, I think it was something ridiculous, like 10 or 11 fouls per game throughout his World Cup career, which is, I think it's about 4 more than anybody else since they recorded statistics 50, 60 years ago on this. I mean, there's a difference. Most people tend not to assume nowadays that Maradona was a play actor because he was a short, stockier type. He was a bit more of a popular figure. Neymar's a phenomenal talent. I think Brazil will be fine without him. That's not to downplay Korea too much. They simply are not at the level of Brazil. And I think resting him if he's 50-50 is very sensible because facing Croatia in the next game could well be a game that goes to extra time as well. And they will need to have players at their physical peak for that if it goes that far. So I expect Brazil to win tonight. I certainly do. And if Neymar plays, well, obviously that's better for them. But if he doesn't and they get through, it will be seen as a very intelligent decision. And Chiche has, if anything else, proven he knows his squad inside out and they trust him. So I don't think Neymar is the type who would complain because he would know that Chiche would explain to him, look, you are my man. I need you for the later stages. And I think that's what's likely to happen.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he's in the starting lineup tonight, but as I said, how much of a role he's going to play, nobody really knows. The starting lineups, I could put them up on the screen just right now, so I'll share what I have with you guys. So here we go. It's an interesting enough lineup, nothing too out of the ordinary for Brazil. Alisson, of course, in goals, Militao, Marquinhos, Silva, and Danilo in the defense. Casemiro and Paqueta, they are just the back two midfielders in front of the defense. Then Rafinha, Neymar, and Vinicius Jr., and of course Richarlison up front. Richarlison has actually been a bit of a revelation this World Cup, Andrew.
Absolutely. His stock is absolutely flying right now. He's got a bit of aggression about his play that he's so determined he's going to get ahead of his marker. He's got phenomenal athletic, aerobic flexibility. I mean, his second goal in particular in the first game of the World Cup was just unbelievable. Acrobatic, twisting his body in any way just to get a shot on goal. I think that is going to be, well, he'll be a problem for anybody to mark. I think what will be particularly interesting is to see exactly how Richarlison is played when, well, I mean, okay, Neymar's in the starting lineup, but I expect him certainly not to play the entire game, even if it only goes to 90 minutes. But when they're both fully fit and against the bigger teams, you can't take him out of the side. When you are in a Brazil side, even with the injuries that they've had, Gabriel Jesus looking like he's out for 3 or 4 months, needs surgery, that takes away an option up front, of course. But the likes of Anthony out wide, he is kind of more going to be their difference maker later on, off the bench, very dangerous option. Richarlison is, I would argue Richarlison is one of the, in the cocoon of the World Cup, one of the form players of this tournament. And I think it'll be very, very important how he makes a difference tonight. So it's a chance for him.
looking at it with then look at the South Korean side, Kim in goals and three actually all a back line of Kims.
Kim.
The Irish fans used to sing of we dream of a team of Gary Breens, their dream of a team of Kims. So the entire back five are Kims. Then there's Jung and Hwang, they sort of anchoring the midfield. Then you got Son, of course, we know who he is, Lee and Hwang, and then Cho up front on his own. South Korea have only been out of the group stage twice in all their showings. And I mean, the first time, of course, it was in 1954 in the World Cup. They were competing in the group stage, played to, lost to, conceded 16 goals. From 86 to 98, never got out of the group stage, not winning a single game, having 4 draws out of 12 matches. Then, of course, they had that miraculous win against Italy in 2002 in their home World Cup, basically, and finished 4th, getting beaten by Turkey in the bronze medal playoff. Returned to form with a group stage. Well, they won 1, drew 1, and lost 1 in 2006. In South Africa, they reached the round of 16 as well. Then group stage exits the last 2 World Cups. Pretty disappointing in Russia, despite the huge following support that went with them. But this time around, they've done a little bit better, Andrew. But at the same time, is this a bridge too far for these boys?
Well, I'd love to be romantic and say they'll take the game to Brazil, and I think they certainly will not lack any effort, but I just don't think they have the quality or the stamina to keep their... It's not just the physical stamina, but it's like I mentioned earlier about one of the strengths of Croatia, which I don't... it's going to sound mean, perhaps a bit unfair, but I don't think South Korea have. And that is not just the ability to keep running, but to play intelligent, sensible passes when you are at the very, very end of your energy levels. I think they're going to find it tough. They are going to find it tough. I guess, look, let's try and be hopeful in a sense. The lineups, just having another look at them, it is a very attacking lineup by Brazil when you've got, well, effectively 4 forwards, well, 4.5 forwards almost. Casemiro is pretty much the only midfielder who's likely to sit anywhere near the defence. Paquetá does play a much more varied role for the national side, but he is nominally an attacking player, or one who at least links up play. And that might be where South Korea have a glimmer of hope, I think, is in the midfield. So the centre of the entire game is going to be critical for them. Trying to defend all game against Brazil's wingers is going to be very, very difficult, and especially when Neymar will drift out wide and combine with the wide players. So, I mean, yes, obviously that's something they've got to do well, but I think more importantly, cutting off his supply line in midfield is their biggest hope. I would love to say I think they could do it, but I don't. I think Brazil are going to win this. They may concede. It may be very tight, but Brazil have the know-how, the quality, and they've got resources off the bench. So I think Brazil will win.
Okay. I spoke earlier today with friends in Frankfurt who, of course, Frankfurt have a huge soft spot for South Korea because, of course, Cha Bong-kun, who played for Eintracht Frankfurt, of course, he won a European Cup Winners' Cup with Frankfurt, of course, played for South Korea as well and in the World Cup. And they like there's 2 or 3 bars there full of people who are back. And even though they have a soft spot for Brazil, at the same time, they still are massively supporting this Korean effort. And I think you're right. I do think it's going to be Brazil's night tonight. So, okay. So on that, we will say goodbye for now. Andrew will be back, of course, at the same time on Wednesday. And of course, we'll speak. I think we'll have to speak then about the England match, because I think it's going to be a doozy. An awful lot of people are saying that England are going to meet their Waterloo in this one, but who knows? Who knows? This is on Saturday, but we'll discuss it, of course, well beforehand. So, Andrew, enjoy the game, Stephen. Thank you very much for your time as well. And
pleasure's always possible.
And a super job done, by the way, last night hosting on your own. World class.
Well, very, very kind. It was an absolute blast with Cian and Andrew, and perhaps not the most serious at times, but we had great fun.
Excellent. I have an awful lot to live up to now, so thank you very much, Andrew. Take it easy.
Pleasure, Ross.
Okay. Folks, we will say goodbye for now. Let you go off and enjoy the game. Less than half an hour to kick off, so enjoy this. Remember, Andrew has looked at this game and said Brazil are going to come out on top. So here's hoping that Korea might shock them, but the hopes are both slim and, like Bob Hope, dead. So until Wednesday, same time, I'm Alvor saying take care of yourselves and each other.